The world of video, television, social video, YouTube, all of this is becoming, or I would say has already become, a very important part of our lives. And among the various applications in life that we use, video is the one where we've been used to utilize artificial intelligence the most. And artificial intelligence, since at least 10 years, for at least 10 years, has been helping us in finding contents, helping us to discover content that we're interested in. So artificial intelligence in this sector has entered early on into helping us as a consumer. The video and the impact of artificial intelligence in the video experience is the very topic of today's episode of Conversation in Artificial Intelligence. Paolo, your host, and with me today, we have a veteran, a senior vice president of product management that has entered the race many years ago, has more than 20 years of experience in various companies, B2C, B2B, in the realm of artificial intelligence applied to television, video, and video online, and combination thereof. Olivier Wellmann is here with me today. Hello, Oliver. How are you today?
I'm doing great. And yourself, Paolo?
I am very good, and thank you for being here. I would like to start really right away and ask you why we're here today, why you are invited on Conversation Artificial Intelligence. That means that you have something to do with artificial intelligence. How did the story begin?
My story with AI started a long time ago. I was always on computers since a very young age. And when I went to university, I studied, econometrics, and I was really fascinated by the capability of data to predict the future. That's something that I was very interested and dive quite deep into it. And I even went to Northwestern to kind of apply those kind of modelization techniques to marketing, and so that was my first foray in AI, and really understanding how to better understand consumer behaviors, better apply mathematical model to derive insights, and the capability of predicting what could potentially happen based on big data. So that was really my first kind of experience in the field, and I've never really left that field.
Let's say that your mom comes to you and asks, I want to know how artificial intelligence is used in my television. And you had to explain that in 60 seconds. What would you answer to your mom?
So, the most visible and easily understandable aspects of AI in the video space is really resolves around recommendation engine, everything that helps the discovery of media. Today we have almost unlimited amount of content. We have unlimited amount of choice, many channels, 500 channels, thousands of applications, OTT applications. How do you even make sense of all that? And I think that kind of decision-making and recommendation aspects in the video world is the most visible tip of the iceberg, and where AI is being implemented. But there's many other aspects in the video space where AI is being used. It's used in advertising, obviously, making the decision of which ad to show to which person at what moment, which is critical and really driven by what's called incremental lift or outcome. But it's also not just personalized advertising or targeted advertising. AI also used on many other aspects of the video.
So, Oliver, at the same time, you are a precursor, if you like, of what today is emerging around the world, in the tech hub of the world, as the AI product manager. So basically the product manager that works really deeply into products that are deeply powered by artificial intelligence, sometimes really works with the platforms and the devices where this artificial intelligence lives. Now, if you had to give a newcomer, I would say a young product manager or somebody that wants to get into a field, some advice. What are the top 3 secrets for being a good AI product manager?
So I don't think there's a specificity to AI in terms of being a good product manager, but being a good product manager really resolves around, in my view, around kind of 3 critical components. So the first one is focus on the customer. As a product person, you're really the person that, is obsessing about the customer, is obsessing about what are their pain points and how to solve that. So that's number one, that's very critical. The second piece is, as a product person, you really need to invent and innovate on behalf of that customer. You need to understand their pain point and solve those pain points. And if AI can help that, and AI can help in many, many aspects of that, you should use it. And you should really think about radical innovation as a product person. It's not just about simple innovation, it's about radical innovation. You can do incremental improvements, but you should also leapfrog the market and the industry and bring and push those innovations through in order to improve the customer satisfaction and the value that they're getting out of your product. And lastly, the most kind of critical is you need to get results. Radical innovation is all good, focusing on the customer and the pain point is all good, but you also have to focus on execution and outcome because you have to make it happen. That is the role of the product person. So those 3 things are very much the pillar, the foundation for successful product people.
So Oliver, let's now go back to our topic, and we want to talk about AI in the video realm, in the television realm. I think one of the things that is really important to clarify for our audience is something that a lot of people know, Facebook and YouTube, and they live in their world, and a lot of people use TV. So I would like to take a look at what is the difference between the television, OTT, YouTube, and Facebook.
So OTT means over the top. And it's a term that has historical meaning because in the days where there was what was called MVPDs or distributors like Comcast and EchoStar and DirecTV, the internet delivery would go over the top of the cable and satellite distribution method. So today, if you're looking at today with over the top really becoming mainstream, I'm not sure the term itself is relevant because that's becoming the main distribution method. So that's really the definition. And the definition of OTT usually implies on the technical side that the video is being distributed over the internet in a way that's adaptively streamed. So the video profile changes depending on the bandwidth of the end device. So that's what over the top means, and a number of companies have emerged really leveraging those technologies to distribute video across the internet. YouTube and Facebook, today they're doing videos as well. Actually, most of their growth now is driven by video. So the OTT world is really becoming mainstream, both on OTT application like HBO Now, Disney Plus, Sling, but also, Facebook Watch and YouTube Red and all those different types of applications. And what we're seeing is that really video now on the internet is everywhere. I cannot think of anyone who's actually not doing video today. It's becoming the primary method of communication over the internet.
So if we kind of summarize this a little bit, let's say there are a couple of components here. There are the completely free video type of thing where they are sort of crowdsourced, Facebook and YouTube, but not YouTube Red. Then we have instead a lot of other players in the space where they really are company. They produce for the internet, so there is a value chain there. Can you briefly tell us how the value chain works? So there are producing companies, there are distribution companies. Like, how does it work?
Yeah, one of the big differences here today is that the studios and the publisher of content, or the content owner, now have the capability of going direct to the consumer, which was not the case before because they had to go through the cable and satellite operators. So today, publishers are going direct. You can see that with the launch of Disney Plus recently, where Disney is making a large part of their catalog available on this new application. But we had seen that as well with HBO, with ESPN, and with a number of publishers that have made their content available direct. There is also a number of other forms of distribution on the OTT space, which is what people call virtual MVPDs. Essentially, those are distributors. The example of that would be a Hulu or would be a Sling. And what they do is essentially mimic the traditional cable and satellite offering and become a replacement for those by delivering over the internet and across devices. But really the emergence of OTT really was led initially by on-demand. So most of the apps were on demand, most of the offering were on demand. And what you're seeing today is that not only it's on demand, but it's also live. We're seeing a lot of sports being streamed live. We're seeing a lot of news being streamed live, and kind of this live and immediate access to video, which was not done prior, essentially because the infrastructure was not able to support it. Today we're seeing, if you really look at, so there's this kind of emergence here, which is, by the way, widely adopted by consumer. Today in the US, you probably have 20 to 25% of the population that has cut the cord. So they're not subscribed to a traditional satellite and cable operation. They only get their video and television from OTT application, would it be on their smart TV or on their devices or on streaming device such as the Roku stick or the Amazon Fire. So you're really seeing an increase in video consumption today because of the availability of choice and this kind of immediate access to video across all your devices.
So what are the revenue sources in this market?
So typically the producers and the studios publish the content, they create the content, and they make it available across a number of monetization channels. Would it be a theatrical release or television syndication and selling to OTT provider the ability to access their content? So this is a good chunk of the revenue. It's probably 50-ish% of the way television and video is being monetized today. So there's many ways of actually creating revenue, but all those entails that somebody, either the distribution or the consumer, is paying a subscription or a license fee for the ability to watch or distribute that content. So that's one piece of the monetization scheme. It's about 50-ish, 55%. The other 45% is advertising. And that split has been pretty constant over the years, even now. Although on OTT, the first kind of emergence, the first wave of OTT provider was mainly focused on subscription revenue. It's really now that you're seeing advertising revenue, especially on premium content, picking up on the OTT side of things, mainly because you had to have enough mass, enough distribution, enough eyeballs in order to start monetizing via advertising. So those are the two main methods of monetization scheme that the video and television industry has used to monetize.
Who gets what, basically? How is the revenue distributed?
So if you have a successful piece of content, you're not going to have any issue on the monetization scheme. Would it be through advertising or through subscription? But what you have to understand is that the TV and video ecosystem is a fairly complex business structure where there are a lot of legacy models. And some of those legacy models are being transformed and moved over to the internet in a way that's very interesting. I'll give you, for instance, an example. On Roku, many people, in order to create an application on Roku, have to give 2 minutes of airtime to Roku for them to sell that advertising. So, and creating more monetization potential on the Roku platform. But that model existed prior. That model existed in the past. For instance, Comcast and Time Warner on cable channels in the US would also get 2 minutes per hour on the broadcast channel. So there's a lot of layers of monetization in terms of how to best monetize the content. And the truth is, the video industry and the studios have been very clever in the way they distribute content and they monetize their content many, many times over. So it's a fairly complex industry where a lot of rules, a lot of regulation, but a lot of also monetization steps in order to fully monetize the content from A to Z.
How is then artificial intelligence used in these complex ecosystems? We talked about the recommenders, but I guess there are lots more other users. Can you give us an overview of the various 3-4 type of users that are here?
So on the AI, AI is today applied across the value chain in the video space. And I do see a lot more application of AI in the video space. But I'll give you some examples of where AI is being used that may not be so obvious for consumers. For instance, video encoding. What to choose which video for which bandwidth is a critical component. How to best encode videos is a big application for AI. How to best optimize your delivery of your video across CDNs, across the internet, another big application of AI. We talked about discovery and recommendation. That's obviously an obvious one where recommendation engine are being powered by AI. But you also have advertising, where targeted advertising and the ability to reach a specific individual at a specific time for a specific product leverages very critical components of AI as well. But there's also more not well-known components of applying AI, for instance, in auditing or in license fee management, or understanding what people like and what people don't like, which actors should play in which movies. So those are other aspects of AI that's being implemented in the video ecosystem. So really, AI is almost everywhere in the video space today.
So that's a very large set. I want to just for a second clarify a few points. So we discussed about this thing called encoding. For those who are not technical, it's very simple to understand. When you send a video to somebody, you don't send it really like multiple images. There is a mathematical operation that transforms the data in a way to sort of reduce this amount of data, because otherwise it's too difficult to transfer. The video is a lot of data, okay? So this transformation is called the encoding. And the way that this transformation takes place is driven by artificial intelligence. Another thing that exists on the internet is that when you watch a video, and let's say that I am Netflix here in California and you are on the other side of the world, you are in Japan, you don't really connect with Netflix in California. You connect with some kind of internet infrastructure that is close to Japan. Now, the way that you distribute this content across all these various internet retails, if you like, around the world is also affected by artificial intelligence. I would like to go a little bit more granular on these recommenders, okay? How are they used today?
So the recommenders and recommendation engine are now present for pretty much every application or video offering available today. I don't think there's a single one that kind of doesn't have a recommendation capability. Really, the focus and the goal of a recommendation engine is to increase video consumption, but not just increase video consumption, really increase the satisfaction of the user in terms of watching a video. If you have videos, if you have TV shows and programs that are more tailored to what you want to do at that moment in time, and it's very easy for you to find them and discover them, that is, increased satisfaction, and therefore you have a more likelihood of using more of that service or continuing paying the subscription fee. So that is really the goal of the recommendation engine, really increase that customer value or consumer value and helping consumers discover content across this infinite, almost infinite amount of video and choices that you have with those services. That is the key goal here. Now, how is that being achieved? And, consumer needs kind of support in decision making, and it can happen in many different ways. And I'll give you a few examples of how that could happen. There's techniques that's called audience similarity. Audience similarity is sometimes the technical name, they call it collaborative filtering, which essentially is predicting what people who have watched this piece of content, what other things have they watched, okay? So that gives you an insight in terms of, okay, this Game of Thrones movie, what the people who watch Game of Thrones, what other piece of content would they watch? And that really helps you, discover additional content that's kind of like this one, but consumed by people who have consumed the original piece of content. That's one method. There's other methods such as content-based filtering, which are more kind of the traditional recommender or traditional recommendation engine, which is based on information like actors or synopsis or genre. They will find other piece of content that fit those criteria and will recommend you other piece of content based on that. Sometimes you have content-based recommendation that's also based on your behavioral data, which is very critical. Behavioral data is a very highly predictive piece of information and oftentimes allows the mathematics behind that to do very good recommendation because, as humans, we are creatures of habits. And if I understand your past behavior, I have a very likelihood of doing a good guess at your future behavior or at what you want at that moment in time. But there's also other piece of recommendation, things like popularity. What is popular now? What is the most watched channel right now? I want to watch that channel because I know my colleagues tomorrow at the coffee, during the coffee break, will want to talk about that one. So popularity or trending, what is going up? What is going down? I want to watch the stuff that's going up. So those are other types of recommendation. And oftentimes what happens is the recommendation engines, kind of classify those different types of recommendation. They'll call you, what's on or what's trending, or people, customers who bought this also bought this. This is audience similarity. But also oftentimes you also do hybrid recommendations. So you take kind of the best outcome of different algorithm or different classification techniques in order to give you an even better recommendation to really help you navigate through this sea of content and making sure that you can create that choice and watch content that's really tailored to what you want to do at that moment in time.
So this is actually something that was already there. So it's something that is evolving. And it would be interesting to understand how the technology is evolving in the last 3 to 4 years, how the new trends of artificial intelligence have been incorporated.
The technology has evolved quite a bit in the past 5 to 10 years. Some of it is visible to the consumer, some of it is under the hood at the infrastructure level. But there's been substantial change in terms of how data is being collected, processed, and leverage. And it's really the ease of that collection, processing, and normalization of the data and the application of algorithm or math onto the data, as well as how you can leverage the data. You have to remember that a few years back, a lot of the things that we're discussing today was manual. There was very little automation. It was not easy to access the data. It was not easy to cleanse the data. It was not easy to use AI or machine learning or deep learning framework. A lot of this had to be done manually, which was obviously very time consuming. So it wasn't that it was not possible to do. It was that the effort to do it was quite substantial and difficult to deploy in a real world situation. So this is the fundamental shift that really happened in the last couple of years. And with that, many things have come up from a technical point of view. So for instance, there's a lot of new open source frameworks that you can now leverage in the big data space or in the AI space that makes it a lot easier for companies to create those type of solution and launch those type of solutions. So those are the fundamental changes that have happened, and the convergence of those capability to collect, process, normalize, and leverage both in even live, even in real time or in very near real time, which was almost impossible 5 or 10 years ago because a lot of the infrastructure was batched, so it was sequential one after the other, and you couldn't really have that kind of very dynamic real-time nature of recommendation engine or other solutions where you need to leverage AI in decision making.
When we look at the consumers, if you were to tell somebody, your mom or some of your relatives, 10 years ago, when you went to watch TV, you would not have this, or you stay more watching TV today because of this. What is the one thing that today makes it more performing for consumers, if you like, than it was yesterday?
So I think for consumers, because of the evolution of technology, because of the capability have increased, today you have the expectation of real time. So consumers get recommendation based on their latest action, based on what they've just done. The video is being delivered at the right bit rate based on the latest kind of state of the internet or their internet connection. So the real-time nature of the data flow into the system that delivers video, recommends the video, or helps you in the discovery of video is now possible and makes it a lot more compelling for consumers because they get better quality video, they get better recommendation, they get better information in real time on what is going on. They can watch live streams. You don't want to watch a soccer game 2 hours after it was played. You want to watch it, exactly at that moment as it's being played, for instance. Just like you want to be able to discover content that's happening now based on, if you're interested in news, what is the latest news? What is the latest breaking news? If I'm on an evening of Premiership football in the UK, I want to be able to see the score of the other team. The real-time nature of data and data flow really is changing the game, and the underlying technology today really enable that, and that was not possible a few years back.
I want to ask something that is more in the realm of, if you like, product management, the technology industry, and give some advice to people. So let's suppose that I launch a company in artificial intelligence, which is what I'm doing, talking to people around the world. Let's suppose that they are students, 18 years old, and so on. And for some reason, I start from scratch and I create an audience of 10 million viewers. But when I start, I have no money, I have no data scientist, I have nothing. So I am able to create this audience of 10 million viewers and I have no recommendation systems. So you as a product manager, how would you advise a product manager to come in to go about it?
So a critical aspect of deploying AI, for instance, a discovery and recommendation engine, from a product perspective, what you're really looking for is to maximize the customer value. So you're trying to maximize the value that your 10 million subscriber, in this case, or user, or a monthly active user, can get out of your system. And that is very critical. One way of doing this, obviously, is personalization and discovery. And you assume that maximizing customer value will boost revenue or average recurring revenue, will boost your advertising potential, will have positive effects on the user experience, and will enable customers to better engage with your service and watch longer for a longer period of time and tell their friends that this is a great service that they should be using as well. So what is critical from a product perspective on the discovery side is really maximize what the technology offers. So not only from an algorithmic point of view, but also from other components that are available today. For instance, Ultra HD allows you to have very large screens. And on those very large screens, you can have more information than on a smaller screen. So being able to create recommendation and discovery mechanism that leverage AIs, but also leverage AI in a way that's more tailored to larger screens than smaller screens is key. And you want, in the video world, you want that the viewer feels immersed into the experience, that he has the capability to explore almost this limitless media availability across. And you want to create kind of a rationale for the consumer based on your customer insights, based on your end goal, and then start to work backwards into the product management roadmap and structure in order to eventually get to this end goal final stage. So there's never really a final stage, but this critical milestones where that you've described through your vision. And what is fundamental to this, and a lot of people use it in the Valley, is really what the concept of lean product management. And lean product management is all about small iteration, test, measure, deploy, test, measure, deploy, adjust, and so on. So you create little improvements along the line of your long-term vision in order to improve and maximize the KPI that you're trying to reach. In this case, maximizing the value to the consumer in order to help them better discover content. So that is really the core of a recommendation engine on how to best leverage those AI and those new technology that are available to us today.
So I want to augment this a little bit with just one follow-up question. If you look at the initial way of doing recommendations, people were trying to give you everything. Like you have one single screen and the recommendation will give you a bunch of videos that you can view. How do you think a product manager should think in terms of user experience, and where should they find a kind of a compromise between a user interface that invites the user doing something and an intelligence that provides value to the user?
There's multiple aspects and answers to that question, Paolo. It comes back to your KPI and being, creating a data-driven product management. And I'll give you an example. You can say that discovery is really here to help you maximize the time between the moments where you get into the app to the first moment where you consume your piece of content, and you want to shorten the time to the decision by giving relevant decisions, options, menus that really simplify and shorten that time spent, okay? That could be a KPI and an objective in order to maximize customer value. But that would set a number of UI and AI choices in order to reduce that amount of time. But you could also have a counter strategy which says, actually, you know what? The discovery is part of the experience. As long as the person is in the app and trying to discover content, watching a trailer here, watching a trailer there, watching this, and spending a lot of time in the discovery mechanism, you could consider that as actually also maximizing customer value, because you consider the decision-making and the discovery aspect as part of the entertainment as well. So those two strategies, which are both trying to maximize customer value, may have completely different KPIs and completely different navigation schemes and methods. So what is very, very critical from a product perspective is that you know what your end goal is. You know where you want to get to. You know what your brand and your product and your offering stands for in the eyes of the customer. and then you roll out, you work backwards in order to apply the right metrics to the right feature based on your goal. That is absolutely critical. That's why I'm a very big proponent of data-driven decision-making, where you measure your action, you measure if your actions actually fit into the strategic intent of the product or the service you're trying to deploy, and then you improve, iterate, measure in order to reach the goal that you had set yourself.
Olivier, as we get towards the end of our interview, we typically ask what's next to most of the people that we interview, but I want to ask that in a difficult way to you. And it's the following one. We live here in Silicon Valley, and there is a data scientists and engineers, and they said, that's it with the corporate world. We're going to go and start a company and revolutionize a piece of technology in the video space. What it is that they have to do? What is the future? Like what it is that they have? What is the future of AI and, if you like, infrastructures that they should focus on? What they have to invent that is not possible today that would solve a significant problem?
I think one of the critical limitations today is really about data quality. And data quality is something that people don't really think much about, but you do know when you see it. And, AI and the best algorithm will not work or will not produce quality results if the data quality is not good. And there's this term in the business which is called data wrangling, which really involves writing code to join various elements to complete and clean and ensure a complete data set that you can then ingest into your data lake and apply AI to it. And I think that we'll see in the coming months and years, significant improvements in data quality and data wrangling systems where a lot of those items can be automated, giving solid foundation to the data set on which we apply the algorithm and the processing and the computation in order to derive those insights and action. So that's a very critical piece that I see a lot of potential. Another potential is pipelining. If you're looking at AI or ML or even deep learning, the pipeline operationalization, I found this good model that really allows me to predict this outcome. But oftentimes it's very siloed into the organization. It's only that department or within that data science person, and it's difficult to share, it's difficult to reproduce, it's really difficult to deploy in production. Just like you had hardware as a service or application as a service or storage as a service, really modeling as a service. I created this model that predicts this or does this or derive that insights, and I can create that modeling as a service and then really spread that information, those insights across the organization in a way that's very easy, where it's very reproducible and it's easy to change and update in real time into the production system. So I think we'll see a lot of emergence around modeling as a service in the AI space, apply to all kinds of solutions. Would it be a recommendation engine or encoding or CDN optimization or any crime or face recognition, all kinds of application in the AI world where you're able to, from a data set, being able to create models that are easily shareable, easily deployable across the company and across systems.
So this is very interesting. So for those who are in the management areas, generally the work in any level of management, low, middle, or high level of management, you can see how many times on these channels the people have come here, and myself included, they always point their fingers to some element that has to do with the complexity of handling the data or the limitations of the algorithms to handle the data, the cost of handling the data, and then the operational cost to take this artificial intelligence inside a real piece of hardware or software that does something. This is a recurring problem. This is one of the most important industrial hurdles right now that we have, and it's also one of the things that created barriers for small companies to adopt artificial intelligence, because it comes down to money at the end. It's a lot of money that has to be, and it is one of the hurdles for large companies. They have the money, but I can guarantee you, and I've been and I consult for large companies, it's waste a lot of money in this layer. If you have additional questions, please comment below. Please look at the further information about these episodes in the video comments. Reach out to me for additional suggestions. So for the time being, Oliver, thank you so much. It was a great pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paolo. This was fun.